Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from ExecuteAutomation.com and welcome to another video of our Specflow course. And in this video, we'll be talking about Specflow Hooks. So what is this Specflow Hooks? So Specflow Hooks are the event bindings which can be used to perform additional automation logics at specified time, such as any setup required prior to executing a scenario. For example, in Selenium or any API testing like REST Sharp or playwright testing like initializing the playwright driver. In all these automation testing, we might require our web driver to be initialized or REST Sharp API to be initialized or playwright library to be initialized. And these initializations will be happening prior to our test execution starts. And this can be done using what is called as hooks. And this can be done either in before test run or before feature or before scenario, like whichever is the requirement of your test logic. So those initializations will all happen on the hooks. And once the test execution is completed, we also might need to close the drivers like Selenium web driver or REST Sharp library as well as the playwright library. So all these tear down might need to be done on the hooks, and that's something we can do using this after test run or after feature or after a scenario. So all these events are available as hooks in Specflow, and that's what we'll be discussing in this particular video, but not using these libraries, but at least on the basic, like how these hooks will be invoked using the binding attributes that we discussed in the step definition in our earlier video. All right, so let's get started. So in order to work with the hooks, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here on the project and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this as hooks. And within this hooks, I'm going to add the new scenario hook. And this can be done much easily in Specflow using the template already available by the Specflow's extension that we already installed within our Visual Studio 2022. So as you can see on the Specflow, you can see that we can not only just add the feature file, we could also add the Specflow hooks or the event bindings, as you can see over here. So I'm going to choose this one and I'm just going to name this as test initialize. That will be an apt name. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see that there will be a template of code already available, pretty much like the binding attribute already used over here for this particular class. So this class is already decorated with the binding attribute, and it has the before scenario attribute, and you can see that there is a tag being used like tag 1, and this before scenario will be called only if there is a scenario with this specific tag that you are seeing over here. And if there is no tag, then it is going to be called for all the scenario in any of the feature files which is available on this particular project. And similarly, you can see that in the before scenario, there is also an order is equal to 1. So basically it says that the example of the ordering of the execution of the hooks. So you can also specify the order the hooks needs to be called during the execution. So for example, if you need to split the hooks based on the order or a specific logic, we can do that as well over here. And once the execution is done, we can also call the after scenario or something like this. So let's try to do one by one, like whatever is already available in this template code. For example, if I want to do something like before test execution, so I'm just going to do BE, and you can see that it automatically brings me up this particular information like before feature, before scenario block, before step, and before test run. This is the one which I'm interested in. So let's go with the before test run, and I'm just going to say public static void before test, something like this. And let's write a console. I hit control dot to add the using systems, and then I'm going to say write line, this line is executed before test. I'm going to save this and I'm going to run this test right now over here, and you will see that the test execution is completed, and I'm expecting the console.writeLine to print something over here, but it's not happening. So let me put a breakpoint here and let's see if the execution is even calling this particular before test run. And you can see that once I start executing the test, it is coming to this before test run, and it is coming to the console.write line, and it says that the line is execute, maybe it's executed from before test, something like that. So it is actually being called and it is executing from here, which is cool. So it is basically calling this particular before test run. And you also notice that at the moment I'm actually making this particular method as a public static void before test, not a public void before test. Basically the before test and after test should be a static method. So if you try removing the static access specifier and if you try executing this same test once again, you will actually notice that the test will fail, and it says that the binding over here, like before test, should be an static event. So basically it should be static, if not the test is going to fail eventually. So that's what it is basically saying for you over here. So make sure that it is static. And all this information is already available on the Specflow. So if you just search for Specflow hooks, and if you go to the documentation, you will see that it tells you that the before test run and after test run must be static, and similarly before feature and after feature must be static as well. And the rest of these hooks should not necessarily be a static method, so it can be a non-static method. That's what it is telling for you over here, right? So that is the whole idea of this particular hooks, which is working fine for us over here. And similarly, if I want to write for the before scenario with a tag, so let's say if I want to add this tag as tag 1, or maybe the my tag that we have. So I'm just going to put the my tag over here, and I'm going to be writing the same console.write line over here, and this line is executed from the before scenario with tag, something like this. I'm going to save this and let me try running the test. And you will see that it prints up this value. This line is executed from the before scenario with the tag, which is because we have the tag as my tag, which is great. So it is actually calling the before scenario as well. And if I want to print the before feature, then I could do that as well. So again, as we know that the before feature should be a static method as well. So I'm just gonna call this as before feature test, something like this. I want to call this as initialize test, something like that, with the before test run, which is gonna make more sense. And I'm gonna write the console.write line. This is from for feature, and you can see that I'm actually using the expression bodied member here instead of the braces. You can also do the exact same thing if you hit control dot, and you can call this expression bodied member, because this is a C# way of writing the code, and it makes the lines more simpler to read as well. As you can see, just one line of code, and it does exactly the same thing that we are trying to do over here. And the exact same thing we can do for the after scenario as well. So for example, if I want to print the line, something like this, this line is executed from after scenario. I'm not going to do with tag or something like that, and you got the idea already, like how it is happening and working. So I'm just going to do that, and let's try remove this order thing, which I don't want. Now code looks a bit better and even easier to read. And now if I try running the test, let's see how the test is going to look like. And you can see that it is going to show us all the details. So it's going to say this line is executed from the before scenario with the tag. So the tag thing is being called over here. And then we have given the first number is 50, and all those things are going to be printed for us. And then finally, this line is executed after the scenario, which is going to be this one. So basically, the before feature and the before test runs are going to be executed for you, but they are not going to be printed for you over here on the standard output, but it is actually being called as you have seen that execution basically happening, right? So if you try to put a breakpoint, those two methods are still going to be called from the hooks, but they are not going to be printed for you on the standard output. but you could able to see that before scenario is actually going to be printing those values for you, and similarly the after scenario is going to print those values for you over here. That's it, guys. This is how the hooks are going to be called within the Specflow, and these are most important building blocks while we write the Selenium automation code or any automation testing code. So that's it, guys. Once again, thank you very much for watching this video, and you guys have a great day.